Hey everyone, Georgie here with Ukraine Matters. I've been a little bit busy, but busy in a good way. So there will be more videos coming for you this week, specifically covering a lot of interesting topics. So stay tuned for that. But let's cover today the situation at the front lines because what's happening there is pretty tough. In general, the situation at the front lines is extremely difficult. What happened recently in Avdiivka during the week, while I didn't cover it in a video, around Avdiivka, when a couple of days ago Avdiivka was still not taken over by Russians, we found out that the 3rd Assault Brigade was already operating in Avdiivka for a couple of weeks. More precisely, it was about 2 weeks ago. And 3rd Assault Brigade, when they came in, they are one of the more experienced assault brigades, more of the battle-hardened veterans. They came in to help defend the Russian onslaught around the outskirts, to help get Ukrainians that were defending Avdiivka from the potential encirclement and establish some kind of line of control. This, in turn, allowed Ukrainian troops to orderly exit Avdiivka and prepare to defend their country further. Since then, as I was predicting, that Avdiivka was indeed taken by the Russians, and we are now at the new defensive positions around Lastochkina, Severne, and Tonenke with Arlivka. Russians will try to capitalize on the fleeing Ukrainians. So in the next couple of days, we will see Russians trying to follow up their momentum that they're having, trying to go forward, trying to attack more Lastochkina, Severne, Tonenke, and other directions, trying to kind of see how far they can go until they are stopped. And the short answer for it, we don't know. Because while Ukrainians do have defensive positions, we've seen them from the satellite maps that the defensive positions are there. The main and the core problem for Ukrainians has not been resolved. The resources are still scarce, and what to stop Russians with is still not completely clear. And we're going to talk about it a little bit more. Additionally, second direction where things are heating up is Robotyne. Around Robotyne axis, we see where that Russians are attacking in this direction specifically. They've been able to kind of push a little bit through. They have also been pushing from around that area of Novoprokofivka. It seems that Robotyne itself has been quite a difficult position for Russians to take. Therefore, I would expect them to try to kind of encircle it again and squeeze the Ukrainians out. This has been the go-to way of Russians attacking. So we will see if Ukrainians, how long Ukrainians will be able to hold Robotyne. And the clear answer to that, how long they will be able to hold Robotyne, is because the situation around the front line is that Ukrainians are not having enough resources. And again, we're going to get there. Like I'm boiling inside to talk to you about it. But let's just quickly cover the third direction where Ukrainians are also experiencing troubles. It's the Bakhmut direction. Here, Russians are pushing from the north side around Bogdanivka and towards Ivanivske, which is over here. So Ukrainians already are acknowledging that Chasiv Yar, the main kind of hub for logistics in the back ranks of this Bakhmut operation, is going to be potentially in danger soon, which will compromise Ukrainian positions in this area right over here. So we might see, as Russians will close in towards Chasiv Yar, we will see that Russians will start getting also certain successes in the south part of Bakhmut, advancing forward. And those are the main directions where Russians are applying most of their forces. This is where they're having the forces concentration. This is where they are right now utilizing the efforts, utilizing the situation that Ukraine doesn't have enough resources. And what we're seeing right now, I want to be very, very clear, is the price of inaction. It's the price of not taking the threat seriously enough. It's the price for considering that Ukraine is doing well enough, like specifically around summer offensive, when Ukraine went to the offensive, that Ukraine did not need additional boost of supplies. If you remember my streams during the summer, I always said, well, it's good that Ukraine got certain equipment to conduct the offensive, but why did we see the stop of additional supplies being sent to Ukraine? We only see artillery shells and certain ammunition going to Ukraine, but we did not see more tanks, more artillery equipment, and so on being sent to Ukraine. And what happened is that Ukraine is now being drained of resources. European Union that promised certain amount of ammunition cannot deliver. The weapons developments that we hoped you will have is not there. The absolute elephant in the room is the US dropping its support. Ukraine is now not just on back foot. Ukraine is now pretty much back to the situation that we were in around the end of 2022, where it was basically the Russians having the resources and Ukraine scrambling to find anything that they can get their hands on. And in this situation, there is no easy answer. Like, we need to understand that while European help is very relevant, it will help preserve Ukraine to fall back slower, and we're going to talk about it again, but it's not enough to stop Russians in their tracks, mostly because European powers, they don't provide the capabilities that the US weapons will provide. For example, cluster munitions. Cluster munitions were critical, and those were the ones that pretty much stopped Russian offensive dead in their tracks. If we, for example, go Avdiivka like some months, a couple of months ago, when the situation was this, you remember for a longer time, Russians just couldn't advance. Every time we saw videos of Russians trying to advance, we would just see Russian column just getting picked off, destroyed by the kamikaze drones, and then cluster munitions would just wipe out the rest of the troops, which would cause immense casualties and would cause Russia not be able to do anything and then fall back and then wait for regrouping. However, with the cluster munitions now being absolutely dry, with weapons and just normal artillery supplies are not being sent enough from the European Union, there is not enough to stop the Russian advances. We have talked extensively about how long Ukraine needs to hold on. And I told you that the current rate, Russians need a year more, they can fight comfortably. They have enough supplies and so on. So when we're talking about this year comfortably, this is the critical year, like maybe 2 years actually, I was saying, because Ukraine still needs to rebuild their production. And for these 2 years, it was completely on the shoulders of EU and US to keep Ukraine in game to try to sustain itself. However, what we need to understand is that the loss of Avdiivka, and Ukraine will continue losing cities, because right now nothing says that the Russians are stopped, and we should be aware of that. You should be aware of that. And this is all because of the MAGA Republicans. MAGA Republicans, together with Donald Trump, together with Mike Johnson, what they are doing is completely playing into Putin's game. They are doing the Russian assets. At the start of the year, after the Russian offensive, after everything in the winter, I said very, very clear things when we saw how badly Russians failed at Avdiivka at the start of their offensive. I can talk here extensively about what are the awful costs for Russians to take Avdiivka, but that's not really the point. The point is that Russians could not advance just because the combo of cluster munitions plus good drone systems. At that moment, I said, if Ukraine will have resources, then Russians are done. Then it's just going to be meat grinder and they're not going to be able to advance. At that moment, I said that Putin has no winning scenario in this war. Putin has no ability to win this war. The only option for Putin to win this war was to try to prolong the time, sit and wait for something to happen. Because Putin's perception of democracies is that democracies are weak, democracies are inconsistent, democracies cannot stand for what they are supposed to stand for. And what right now is happening with US is proving Putin right. MAGA Republicans with Speaker Johnson are blocking crucial aid. They're going to be talking about it right now like 10 times. They're going to be all the different deflections that, oh, Biden can do something on its own. Or, we could have just have a border bill. Or we need to have a border bill separately and then we can help Ukraine. All of these are deflection tactics. Right now, it's Putin's party. MAGA is absolutely giving Ukraine to Putin. The problem with European support, as I expressed it for so long, is that while Europeans are dedicated to support Ukraine, especially when we're hearing news like this, with Czechia finding more than 800,000 shells that technically can be sent to Ukraine, we just need some financing. When we hear something like Denmark sending all of their artillery to Ukraine, everything that they have, this is what we need in Europe, more of it. However, the unfortunate truth is, when we look at certain European leaders, like, for example, Olaf Scholz, for them it is still not obvious. I've watched some of the commentators discussing the situation around the Munich Security Conference that is going wrong right now, and they're still discussing how we should support Ukraine in order Ukraine not to win Russia too hard. That is the level of complete living in a fantasy world. We are on existential pathing here in Europe. We need to understand. I want to say what Mark Rutte said, I believe the Prime Minister or acting Prime Minister, I don't precisely know, of Netherlands. He said that, yes, there is huge problems in US. That is true. However, it is us Europeans that need to do what we must. We need to get our shit together. Well, this is me saying, not him. But he is also right. We are not taking this seriously enough. Russia will not stop. Right now, in war, there is something that is called momentum. And momentum is right now building up on the Russian side. To stop this momentum, Ukraine needs resources. Every inaction that we did in Europe, that we didn't deliver as much as we promised, that we didn't supply as much as we promised, that we supplied vehicles that were not fit for combat, that we supplied not enough ammunition, that we are still discussing whether or not supply certain capabilities a long range to Ukraine. All of that is now adding up, with Poland not doing jack shit about the farmers, supposed farmers, that are now blocking 6 entrances to Ukraine, blocking actual trucks that are delivering military aid. Today came out videos that they are also blocking railway connection to Poland. We are beyond fucked. And this is what I want us all to look at, especially in Europe. I know my US friends, you need to get your shit together, and I'm hoping you will do it. We were all hoping that at least until the election time, we will be able to hope for sustained support to Ukraine. However, MAGA Republicans already took over your country. The laws are not being passed. The Speaker of the House is Trump right now. Are you sure you'll still live in a democracy? So what we are is deeply screwed. So we need to be more like Denmark. And again, I'm working closely to see how we can do it. But we definitely on our own needs to step up in Europe. It is more on us than ever before. We need to be like Denmark. There are times that we couldn't do it. Now we absolutely must. Thank you so much for watching this, guys. As you know, whenever I get angry, it's a motivation for me to do more that we can. And I hope that you, instead of feeling desperation or an inability to act, you would instead feel disgust and anger. And that would motivate you to act and do what you can to support Ukraine, to do with your representatives and so on. Slava Ukraini, guys. I'll see you next time very soon.